السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم وهو بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد: ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. صدق الله العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نبي الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا حبيب الله. With the blessing, mercy and grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're coming to the close of our second fast. I pray that everybody is now managing to fine-tune their timetable and are enjoying this very different type of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid and help us all in our worship and accept it in His court and make it a source of salvation for us. Recapping what we covered yesterday, it was just a brief introduction to the Blessed Qur'an. Some of the key points are that the Blessed Qur'an is one coherent message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a message of guidance that a human being, to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, needs to follow the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That message is quite clear from the arrangement of the surahs. Even looking at the first and last surah, we find that that coherence in that particular message of guidance to people is found there. The beginning starts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the very end we have Surah An-Nas, which deals with people, or people being a key component of it. Surah Fatiha, it contains so many gems. The final story that I gave of Imam al-Razi, rahimahullah, who talks about his understanding of this particular surah. There is a hadith of the Blessed Prophet ﷺ that talks about Surah Al-Fatiha as being a summary of the Blessed Qur'an. It's like the contents page, if you like, of this whole idea of guidance. Just look at the surah itself. It begins either from Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen or from Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. According to different scholars, it differs. But nevertheless, the mention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the surah, there is a dua from an individual, from a person, that Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim, walad-dallin. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide me on this path, give me and show me the method, and may it be the path of those who earn your pleasure, who do not stray from your path. So a person is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these particular words. So we find that the whole message of the Qur'an, from cover to cover, is the same as it is found in Surah Al-Fatiha. The Surah Al-Fatiha maps that exact same. So the hadith that says that the Surah Al-Fatiha contains all of the topics of the Qur'an seems, as far as topics are concerned, to be very accurate. We also have ahadith that relate to Surah Al-Baqarah being a summary of the topics of the rest of the Qur'an, and inshallah we'll come to that as well. Nevertheless, Surah Al-Fatiha, such a brilliant surah in the sense that it livens up a mu'min's whole day. It forms part of his prayer. It is literally called the opening. Whenever you are about to open anything, then recite Surah Al-Fatiha as a blessing for that particular thing. It will have the Bismillah at the starting. There are hadiths that talk about starting all your actions with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim at the beginning, and imagine having Surah Al-Fatiha straight after that. So whenever you start a project, whether it be a worldly project or otherwise for barakah, Surah Al-Fatiha, begin it with this, and a plea to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us in what we are doing. Is this does this fit in to the whole scheme of my journey towards yourself or not? If it does, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give barakah in it. If it doesn't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide me to what does. Surah Al-Fatiha, in itself is divided between human beings and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the topics of the verses that we have in there. The first three verses are exclusively to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. It is all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last three verses, or the last two verses, depending on how you're counting them, from Ihdina Siratul Mustaqim, Siratul Ladina Anamta Alayhim, Ghayril Maghdub Alayhim Waladdallin. This part is entirely for human beings in the sense that we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us on the straight path. Now the ayah in between, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. You alone do we worship. Now this has an element to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and an element to do with a human being, with a person. Iyyaka na'budu. We only worship you. You are being worshipped and we are doing the worshipping. Wa iyyaka nasta'een, and you alone do we ask for guidance. Now, this ayah, which is right in the middle, is split between the two. So at the beginning, you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's glory being mentioned. And then towards the end of the surah, you have this idea of us asking for guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right in the middle, we have Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, which concerns our relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The symmetry is quite striking as far as Surah Al-Fatiha is concerned. As we said yesterday in our introduction, the Blessed Qur'an in its entirety, it's coherent. Every surah has a central theme in itself, but then it follows coherently from one verse to the next verse, and then each surah connects to the next surah. These are not just random surahs that have been put together, or random ayat that have just been molded together. No, rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Blessed Qur'an on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam on different occasions, and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam instructed it to be put together in this particular fashion, in this manner, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him. And what is more miraculous about this is that, look, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam receives it over 23 years, and every verse that is being placed in a different place. It's been different in a different order. Yet the coherence, it remains as it should be. The Blessed Quran is a miracle in all its aspects. Anyway, Surah Al-Fatiha has many gems in it. If we spend the whole of Ramadan just looking at Surah Al-Fatiha, we are able to do that, alhamdulillah, with the most wonderful work of the Mufassirun of the past. They have really exerted a lot of effort in explaining Surah Al-Fatiha. Whenever you pick up a tafsir, the notable tafsirs, you will find the amount of work that has gone into the beginning, and in particular Surah Al-Fatiha, far exceeds what happens later on, or the explanations that go later on. And certainly Surah Al-Fatiha, it covers many of the spiritual side, many of the ethos, if you like, of this guidance and how the setting will be. We always recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all his creation. He is above everything. He is the creator. There is none equal to him. And then everything else will come after everything else comes as part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Towards the end of Surah Al-Fatiha, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, and the connection to Surah Al-Baqarah is immediate. Alif Lam Mim, Dhalika al-Kitabu la rayba fi. That book which has no doubt in it, Hudal lil Muttaqeen, that is the guidance for the Muttaqeen. Straight away, that guidance that we seek, that we want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings that very first verse is talking about that guidance that Surah Al-Fatiha, that we asked through Surah Al-Fatiha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us. We asked for it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us it immediately there. Surah Al-Baqarah it takes its name from a mention of the story of the Bani Israel, in which Al-Baqarah is mentioned. Just a note which I will repeat every so often: there's no significance as such in the namings of surahs. These names are inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and given to us by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. A surah may have many different names. They are just markers as to say which set of ayat that it refers to. So certain surahs will have multiple names, but they're referring to the same surah. So the identifier for this particular surah is Al-Baqarah. And its topics are about the community as a whole. It sets out as an invitation. So we said that the Blessed Qur'an is the book of guidance. You've got to accept it as being a book of guidance. So it takes that particular theme with it. So from the beginning, we find that verses 1 through to 38, they talk about this guidance and the communities that are going to receive it. So we said, as far as mu'mineen are concerned, our intention is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us, and we have whole hope in Him. But not everybody who receives a invitation of guidance is going to have the same response. It's a bit like you setting up a event, if you like, on Facebook or wherever, and you have these options that come up. You have those who say that they are going to that particular event. You have people who say no, who reject it out and out. And then there are those who are kind of interested. Some are going to think about it. Some are going to kind of brush it aside and think about it later and see how things develop. So you've got that kind of response to this invitation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala too. So immediately in Surah Al-Baqarah, there are groups of individuals that are mentioned. We have those who are the acceptors, who accept it, and they are the first ones to be addressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it is هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Several verses are dedicated to them, saying how they accept everything which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked them to obey and to believe. They go along that, and they are the ones who are going to be successful. Very quickly it moves on to those who are rejectors, out and out rejectors, the kuffar, those that reject this particular invitation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. A few verses about them and the rejectors. These people are clear. They are either accepting or they are rejecting. But then there is this category in between. There are some who are reluctant because, well, they're not interested in it, but they want to go along anyway. And then there are others who think that they have something which is better. So both of these groups fall into this I don't know group, who are caught between accepting and not accepting, who are caught between rejecting it and obeying outright. So we have the mu'mineen, we have the kuffar mentioned, and then the munafiqeen come. The munafiqeen are those who outwardly accept the rules of Islam. They accept what is going on, but internally they are very different. Some of the reasons why they might accept is because, well, that's what everybody is doing. There may be financial gain in that. There might be an idea of prestige to that I am a believer from the top, but inside I have I don't believe. I'm just going along with them anyway. So we have stories of the Sahaba Kiram and how honorable they are in their acceptance of this guidance, and then you've got the munafiqeen who kind of mock them, who jest with them and say that we're only with them from the outside, but internally we are not with them. This is the state of the munafiqeen. They are neither here nor there. The Qur'an invites them also. It says to them, look at your situation, look how you are. Munafiqeen have a great portion of the Qur'an Pak dedicated to them. People who are unsure because they don't know of the truth of Islam, or maybe they don't fully believe the truth of Islam. They kind of border on there. Alongside them, we also have the Ahlul Kitab. Now, the Ahlul Kitab are not munafiqeen in that sense, but they have this dual personality to them, if you like. They have been accepting the invitation of the Anbiya that came before, the prophets that came before. Again, in my introduction, I said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals how He wants. There are certain Anbiya alayhimus salam who were given scriptures. Now, the Ahlul Kitab were those who accepted those scriptures. But when the Blessed Qur'an came, they were not happy to go along. They were unsure of whether we should accept this new revelation or we shouldn't accept it. So they were caught between these two lands as well, if you like. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also addresses them in particular. As I said, that they are not the munafiqeen, but they are a bit like the munafiqeen. So there is a mention of them that comes immediately after an introduction to the mu'mineen, to the kuffar, to the munafiqeen, and then the Ahlul Kitab. The Ahlul Kitab have this choice. They can either reject this new wahi and be amongst the rejectors, be amongst the kuffar, or they can accept and be amongst the mu'mineen and with the muttaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then after this brief introduction, if you like, there are many topics in between. As I said, we can't go through everything, but this kind of macro analysis of where the ayat are leading us and what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this surah, that is what we will be doing, inshaAllah ta'ala. From verses 39 onwards, we have the story of the Bani Israel, the people of the faith, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose from amongst the Ahlul Kitab, the Yahud in particular. So there is emphasis on the Yahud, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them many things. He gave them a superiority as far as the blessings of the dunya are concerned. They were literate people. There were people who were educated, who were cultured. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all of these blessings that He gave to them. Yet they, on every occasion, they decided that they wanted to be ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they always chose this wrong path. Again, our theme of guidance, this is a nation, this is a people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked to be guided, and they have rejected all of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that they do, they seem to go towards misguidance instead of going with the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. As I said, they are like an address to us as mu'mineen who are reading this, or as people who are interested in Islam and looking at this. Well, there is a message in that to us as well, that you will see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of you will be guided by this, and how many of you will reject it, and how many of you will turn a blind eye to it, even though it is as clear as day in front of you. So these messages are coming throughout the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. There is a story, or one of the first stories that we find in the Blessed Qur'an. Remember, the Blessed Qur'an is not a book of stories, but a book of guidance, and it uses tools and mechanisms that are familiar to us, familiar to human beings. That stories, they help embed a particular message into our minds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses them. We have the story of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam and Shaitan and the Malaika, that how Shaitan rejects obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, many things are going on, but the key theme that I have taken, the strand that I have taken, it is clear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Shaitan to do a particular thing, and he rejects. He doesn't want to obey. He doesn't want that guidance. He doesn't want to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking him to do. He doesn't want to do that. And we are told straight away that he is somebody who is ejected and rejected from the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The malaika are there, they are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you've got human beings who are caught in between, who can choose to be like the malaika, or who can choose to take a path of the shayateen. So certainly that story there goes on with that particular theme of ours. As we come to verse number 39 through to 121, the Bani Israel, as I said, they are mentioned, their mistakes are mentioned. From verse 122 through to 162, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then comes back to this idea of Tawheed and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is done through the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah. How Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah builds the Kaaba with Sayyidina Ismail alayhim as-salam. Both of them, they come together and they build this house in this derelict place where there is nothing except a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have to go and do this. So they are willing to sacrifice everything in order to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where their salvation will be. This is their guidance, if you like. They are accepting of it entirely. So all of these groups that have been addressed before, the munafiqeen, the mu'mineen, the Ahlul Kitab, they're being told, look at Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah. We are even told, وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِهَ نَفْسَهُ. Who wouldn't be inclined towards the millah and way of Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah. So Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah is being used as our focal point, and this invitation is focused around looking at Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah and his devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told, be devoted like him. O Ahlul Kitab, wouldn't you like to be like Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah, who you claim to be like? O Munafiqeen, look at Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah, how focused and how dedicated and how successful he is in life. It is not by being two-faced, it's not by having different faces when with the dunya and having something quite different inside yourself. No, this is not how to live a good, comfortable life. It is to choose. Far better than the Munafiqeen in that sense are the kuffar who reject out and out. At least they have a set position. Let us not forget that the Qur'an says that the munafiqeen are going to be in the lowest levels of Jahannam. And there is a reason for that, because this is no way to live. O mu'min, O believer who is weak and who is not entirely focused on your Islam, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the munafiqeen as an example for a reason. That don't be 50-50 in your Islam. Don't be half in and half out. No, either you submit entirely, or your path is not going to be easy. It's not going to be as simple as you think. You can't pick and choose and try to maneuver through life in this particular fashion. It will not be successful. It will not end well. You have to choose a camp. You are either going to be a believer or an unbeliever. Even the Ahlul Kitab are told this thing. Look, this revelation is the final revelation. You can't carry on in a different system. You can't carry on however great those systems were for their particular time. You cannot continue them when we have this complete system in front of us. The Qur'an is telling us what that guidance is that we require for this time until Qiyamah. This system is the one that is going to supersede all of the systems before. Ahlul Kitab, leave everything else. There is no other system that of governance, no system of living. There is no other system that is more superior to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in the blessed Qur'an. It is a challenge to all of them. There is no set of rules, if you like, that people have made that are comparable to the blessed Qur'an and what's being taught. And we're going to find that very quickly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to talk about that system. What is that system? And from Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah, it begins with a devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is central and focal as far as the community is concerned and as far as the mu'min personally is concerned, with his dealings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and living through life as he does. Verses 163 to 176 talk about shirk. So we had the idea of tawheed, then we have the idea of shirk, about associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this could mean literally as those people did. They had gods who they worshipped. Or it could mean, as I just alluded to, systems that we have more faith in than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told, look, everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is up to him how he allows things to progress. There is nothing else which can compare to him or his power. We are told about tahrim and tahleel, about things which are halal, things which are haram. Now this is very important in as far as obedience is concerned and gaining guidance. This acceptance of what is halal and what is haram. People who happy to listen to what is halal and haram, but do not apply it to themselves. They are a bit like these munafiqeen who are not entirely sure whether they're fully vested or not. They may even believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fully, but if you're not going to obey what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, then certainly there is a weakness as far as your faith is concerned. So halal and haram are the first part, the fundamental part of being a good, strong mu'min, individually and societally too. So halal and haram are the key components that we require and that we need. So some of the things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, we begin these blocks, if you like, of things which we have to accept as a society, why this society is granted favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are far superior to others. And what do we get in place of it? Verse 177, it talks about virtue. It begins ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله. Al-ayah. This ayah is called Ayatul Bir. It's about what exactly is virtue, what exactly is being God-fearing, what exactly does it mean to have taqwa in your heart and to have belief. It's not about where you are looking, is not about facing this direction and facing that direction, but it is about doing virtuous deeds, being good. So whoever has an ethos of good actions is the one who is going to be superior. And the reasons why this particular ummah is described as being one of the best ummah is because of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar, a theme that we just left, Tahleel and Tahreem, making things halal and making things haram, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has deemed halal and haram. With halal and haram, we are able to make ourselves the best ummah as long as we obey those particular things. Anyway, Ayatul Bir then is followed by various different rules which make this society a complete society, a society which will function better than any other community that may rear its head at any point. We have ideas of qisas, about security and about law and order. The idea of qisas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it as وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. In qisas you have hayat, you have life. Subhanallah, this statement itself was such a revelation as far as the community in Medina and Munawwara was concerned. Everybody was trying to justify the idea of killing. Killing is not correct, is not right in itself. The only reason why killing is made correct in retaliation is for various different reasons that are explained in this particular ayat. One is that it is a deterrent from somebody who's going to commit a crime. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it as وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. In qisas you have life. There is life for the potential criminal, the criminal who thinks that, I'm going to go and take somebody's life. I'm going to go take somebody's life. Before he does that, he thinks, well, the retribution that's going to come, the punishment that is going to come to me is that my life might be taken in replace. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. You have life in this, O criminal, you have life that, safeguard yourself from such a result where you lose your own life at the end of it. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. How many times is murder committed and people at large, they start to have this worry, what are we going to do now? People will lock their doors, they will have a concern, rightfully so. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look, our law is such that a criminal will not be left just to do his crime and nothing will be said of him. No, he will be held to account. If you feel safe, if you feel that you can forgive that individual, then وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. He has life in that as well, and you also have life in that you can breathe and you can forgive. But at the same time, if it means the criminal whose actions are such that if he is let out into the open, how many times do we see once a prison sentence comes to an end, the worry that is found in the community of an individual who's being released, who's not, people feel that he is not fully rehabilitated because of the sentence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look, the easiest way for such a criminal whose crime is so heinous, so bad, that never will society be able to breathe without him, then the best thing for them is to be punished accordingly. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. It allows society to progress. It allows society to move forward. We also have rules of inheritance law, which are not in detail here at this point, but certainly the idea that inheritance is something that that even women can take. I'm saying even women, it is an established fact as far as Islam is concerned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given out portions and those are allocated from him. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has allocated these portions. Inheritance is very much something that will keep society progressing from one generation to another. Details of these will come later on, inshallah ta'ala. We also have mention of fasting and the strength that it holds. Certainly those that were worrying before Ramadan, that how are we going to keep up with these fasts? Fast is going to be very difficult. We're already at the end of our second, or some people maybe at the end of the third, but you know, it's so easy in the sense that when you are into the routine, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants the fasting person such a strength that we can't really explain in words. And many who reflect, many non-Muslims who try to fast, technically it's not a fast, but they are trying to mimic what a fast for the mu'mineen, for the believers is. And at the same time, when they reflect over it, they reflect not over the hunger as such, not over the physical aspect of it, but certainly the spiritual aspect of it, and where that strength particularly comes from. We even move on to subjects such as eating haram, and then it's linked to bribery of all things. Bribery of all things. We're not allowed to eat haram, and also there is a mention of you're not allowed to take bribes. And a society which is built upon bribes, it will collapse, it will break, there will be less justice. So we've got this idea of justice coming through as well, and the idea of bribery is embedded in this, that it is something which is detrimental to a coherent and good society. Verses 189 through to 203 tell us, where should you spend your wealth? We are told Hajj rules. Hajj is somewhere that you can spend your wealth. We are told about jihad in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is somewhere where you can spend your wealth. We are told to do infaq fi sabilillah. And we are told to help the weakest in our communities. Alongside this, we have the rules of alcohol and gambling. يَسْأَلُونَكَ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. We are told that this is not a legitimate place to spend your wealth. Gambling and alcohol are very prevalent in the country that we live in. It is something that believers should tackle head on. What we should be asking the authorities that be is that, look, the effect that alcohol has on, forget the individual, just on society as a whole. I was just looking up some figures. I couldn't find anything which was relevant now. But 5 years ago, alcohol and its direct impact on the NHS was estimated at 1.2 billion. Gambling even more so. This is a direct impact. This is not about the side effects. The mental health, I'm sure, is not included in this. The mental effects of alcohol, of gambling. These addictions are very serious. What we should be promoting and trying to ask the authorities that be is to curtail these particular evils. Our society can't function as a proper society, as a good exemplar society, if these kind of evils are still going on. We had a cultural battle, if you like, with smoking. We should be asking for a similar type of battle with either gambling or alcohol. Remember, smoking was said to be part of the culture, part of the fabric. Some people will be saying that, well, alcohol is part of our culture. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't deny that there are some benefits that you get, social benefits. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس. There is manfa'a, and that there is a social aspect to it. Nobody is denying those. In gambling, you might be able to make pots of money which you are helping the poor. Nobody is denying that. But the ill effect it has on society, the way it breaks it down, that far outweighs the benefits that you are deriving from it. As I said, the smoking ban, we believed smoking to be a part of the culture, yet there was a sustained tackling of the issue. We had at times, at first it was just like adverts going around. Then we had restrictions as to where you can advertise and so on and so forth. And then there were places where you can smoke and you can't smoke. And now you got designated spots. And over time, the trends have kind of fallen. Why not do something similar to alcohol? The burden that we feel our NHS has, or the burden that we feel generally in society as a whole, even in crime, the impact that alcohol has on there. We have a lot of people who point the finger at the Maulana Sabs in the masjid regarding the grooming issues. Look, if there is something which is central to each one of those stories, which is right at the middle of them all, it's not race or anything like this, but you will find drugs and alcohol right in the middle of it. Every single story without exception. Why not tackle the issue where it will have an impact? Again, alcohol and gambling, it requires a lot of thought, a lot of search from everybody, and certainly the believers the mu'mineen can advocate this. That look, our society shouldn't have it, and unfortunately, it's crept into our roles, into our communities. Gambling addiction, alcohol addiction. There are numerous individuals that come to the masjid that are wanting to shake off this addiction to these ills, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them and help them in that. Unfortunately, it's come into our roles, and the reason is that we have not been doing amal bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, tahreem and tahleel, that I talked about earlier. The reason why we are considered to be the best nation as far as the Qur'an is saying is that we do amar bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. If we don't voice our concerns, if we don't voice what is correct or what is wrong, then we will be in the state that we find ourselves in. So the ayat, they continue like this in this manner, talking about the different segments of society which need to be corrected in order for this society to be an ideal society, one which is looked upon by all others and seen as something which is unique and something which they can buy into. So again, it's an address to the munafiqeen, address to the mu'mineen, address to the Ahlul Kitab, that look, this is the society which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. The period of revelation for Surah Al-Baqarah is around the 1st and 2nd year of Hijrah, after Hijrah. So in Medina Munawwarah, the Prophet ﷺ has arrived, and this society is being put together, if you like, is being formed in front of everybody, and everybody's eyes are on the Ahlul Madinah, the mu'mineen certainly there, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us what the cornerstones are for this particular society to be a functioning and successful society. So inshallah, we'll leave it there. We will pick it up from verse 221, inshallah ta'ala. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us all to engage with the blessed Qur'an. If you haven't already done so, please do engage with it at whatever level that you are at. If you are at an introductory level, then start to correct your recitation. Go online, look at the many classes that are there just to perfect your recitation. Certainly on our Bilal Masjid website, we've got some of our Qur'an reading, what they would have normally recited in the Taraweeh prayer. That all goes up. Listen to it over and over, and inshallah correct your pronunciation as far as your recitation is concerned. If you're somebody who is more advanced at that, look at some of the verses, look at some of the meanings of the verses, but do it with a tafsir if you possibly can. Look at the tafsir, look at what the experts have said regarding that. If you're more advanced, then start to put things together where you can educate others. First of all, starting with your self and then your family. You have your audience, your prime audience, with you at all times. Alhamdulillah, the situation is such that they've been locked in, and you have them available there. So teach them something. Whatever it is, engage with the Blessed Qur'an, because in it is our guidance. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aids and helps us all. Wa akhiru da'waya anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.